Hello, guys. Welcome back to Unite Pieces channel. This time, we're going to talk about a movie titled Revolver, a crime thriller film from 2005. Without further ado, let's dive into the storyline. After 7 years in prison, a Cockney gambler named Jake Green is finally released. 2 years after his release, he and his brother Billy go to one of the local casinos with the intention of reclaiming the money that is rightfully theirs from the casino owner, crime boss Dorothy Macha. Ignoring the advice of his bodyguard, Paul, Macha allows Jake to join his private game. On the way up, Jake hesitates to use the elevator due to his claustrophobia, but the bodyguards remind him that taking the stairs would mean climbing 20 floors, which would take too long. Eventually, Jake follows what they say and enters the elevator, struggling to contain the panic attack he feels while inside. Jake's first bet is a chip toss against another player at the table, and he deliberately loses on his first wager. The purpose is to make Macha feel at ease. When making the same bet as Macha, this time Jake wins. Billy and Jake immediately leave the casino with a large amount of money, as he has managed to defeat Macha. As they exit, they are stopped by Zach, who warns them that they are in danger and then hands Jake a business card. This time, Jake decides to take the stairs, but before stepping down, he faints and falls. The card, it turns out, had the words "take the elevator" written on it. Jake is rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, Macha grows restless. He is convinced that Jake wants bigger revenge after 7 years in prison, especially with the incident involving his brother-in-law. So he orders Paul to hire the best hitman to get rid of Jake. At the hospital, the doctor finds no cause for his fainting, only advising Jake to go home and wait for the blood test results. Billy goes back to his own house, while Jake returns home with bodyguards. But once there, the bodyguards are gunned down. Jake survives only because he finds a card that reads "take this," making him duck just before the bullets hit. While trying to escape in a car, his driver is also shot, but fortunately Zach arrives just in time to save him. Macha's hitman, named Sorter, is puzzled as to how he could have missed, since he has never failed a mission before. He suspects that someone may have leaked information to Jake. However, when Macha asks, he admits that he failed because he had a bad feeling. Next time, Zach takes Jake to meet his partner, Avi, who already has Jake's medical test results. The outcome is shocking. Jake has a rare blood disease that will kill him within 3 days. They offer him protection with 2 non-negotiable conditions. Jake must hand over all his money and do whatever they ask, including answering questions. They then give Jake 3 hours to think it over. Then, Jake becomes suspicious that they are just deceiving him and leaves. However, the hospital test results are the same. He then goes to his personal doctor, but the outcome remains unchanged. He only has 3 days left to live. After making sure his doctor wasn't bribed, Jake resigns himself, withdraws money from the bank, and returns to accept Zach and Avi's offer. On the way, Avi explains that they are loan sharks, and Jake's money will be circulated as loans. When visiting their first client, Avi asks Jake to tell the story of his past with Macha. Back then, Macha had 3 foolish henchmen known as the 3 Eddies. They lost their card player before a big game and forced Jake to take his place. Jake refused, but when they threatened Billy's family, he was left with no choice but to join the game. At the casino table, the players insulted Jake's mother. Enraged, he pulled out a gun and fired, then the power went out, the money vanished, and someone reported his name. The police arrested Jake, and to keep him quiet, they threatened his niece. His brother-in-law was killed while protecting his child. Jake never mentioned Macha, and in the end, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Meanwhile, Macha punished the Eddies by burying them alive in concrete. Over time, Jake begins working for Avi and Zach, handing over his money to their clients. He is told to threaten them, but Jake can't bring himself to harm innocent people. Meanwhile, Avi and Zach carry out a major heist, pulling down a wall with a truck to steal a safe containing the powder that Macha had promised to Lily Walker, the advisor to the mysterious kingpin Sam Gold. When Macha learns that his powder is gone, he panics. He then buys powder from the triad led by Lord John at a high price. However, Avi, Zach, and Jake infiltrate the hotel where the transaction takes place. They drill a hole in the wall, spray sleeping gas, and steal both the money and the powder, making it seem as if Matcha and John had set each other up. Billy calls Jake, warning him that Zach and Avi are extremely dangerous, so much so that even gold doesn't dare touch them. Jake doesn't care. When ordered to shoot a client, he refuses and instead tries to shoot Avi, but his gun is empty. Avi immediately incapacitates him. Jake wakes up in a motel and receives a call from Avi. He is past the third day and is still alive. When his niece visits, Billy gives him a gun. Jake then goes back to the doctor for another checkup, and the results show he is healthy. The previous diagnosis was wrong. Furious, he demands an explanation from Avi, but is only told to wait. Meanwhile, Paul investigates and discovers Jake's name linked to Matcha's troubles. Matcha orders Jake to be killed. When Jake returns to the motel, Zach and Avi warn him that Matcha's men are waiting inside. Jake flees, and one gangster dies in an accident, leading the others to believe that Jake was the killer. Jake then meets with Zach and Avi again. They reveal that from the very beginning, Jake had not been honest about his relationship with the Eddies. Back then, after getting out of prison, he made a manipulative deal, giving each Eddie 3 to 4% from the loan money, when in fact he was only circulating their own money. Eventually, when they ran out of capital, they borrowed from Matcha. That was what led Matcha to kill them. Matcha grows increasingly unhinged. During a dinner, he loses a finger when he is shot by John's girlfriend in disguise. Sorter becomes more doubtful about his work, until he finally defects. Refusing to harm a child, he slaughters his own comrades before eventually being killed. Jake slowly begins to change. He realizes that Sam Gold is nothing more than a symbol of ego and greed. To be free, he must let go of his ego. Jake then donates all his money in Matcha's name. In the climax, Jake faces his greatest fear, riding an elevator that gets stuck on the 13th floor. There, he battles the voice of his ego inside his head, and finally emerges as a free man. When facing Matcha, who points a gun at him, Jake remains calm and simply walks past him. Matcha grows furious because Jake is no longer afraid of him, until he finally breaks down mentally. The next morning, Paul brings a newspaper. Matcha's name is featured for the huge donation, Jake's doing. Matcha is briefly pleased, but soon shattered when he learns that the powder is also in Jake's hands. In the end, Matcha takes Jake's niece hostage in the casino. Jake remains calm, telling his niece that everything will be alright, which drives Matcha even crazier because Jake shows no fear even with a gun pointed at a child. Haunted by the voice of his own ego, Matcha ultimately pulls the trigger on himself, committing suicide. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment.